Hello, YouTube. Hope you're having a wonderful day whenever you see this. I am Trenton, joined by TokuHer0. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So you and I had a little fun recently. We were racing the PSP version of Final Fantasy 1 to a couple different goals, and we're going to be taking a look back at that now.
Yeah, yeah. This was a very fun experience. Thank you for organizing this tournament for everybody. It was very fun. It was something different and stuff I'm definitely not used to.
Now, we were playing under any percent rules, so naturally the first thing we both did was go buy a hammer so that we could glitch some pretty good armor on here.
hmm Yes, for those unfamiliar, PSP Final Fantasy 1 has a actually fairly well-known equipment glitch. Actually, you can even find this in casual plays for in the game forums. Basically, what this allows us to do is it allows us to create weapons and armor we're not supposed to have yet due to a little bug in how the game accesses memory and what happens when we switch between two adjacent characters with memory cursor on is that the person we switched to will open up their menu, but it will look at the memory indexes of the person we were switching from. So the hammer and the knight's armor, for example, have the exact same value in memory. So we go from a warrior with a hammer on the weapon slot to the armor slot of an adjacent character, and the game says, "Oh, you have a knight's armor here. Let me show that to you." But we don't actually have one in our inventory, but it allows us to equip it, so it just turns our knight's armor count from 0 to 1, and thus we create equipment from nothing, and we have stuff that we're not supposed to have yet.
Now, to anyone familiar with the any percent route, they would note that we both took different parties here, and we both took a little bit different approach. I brought the Black Mage to still have that direct caster of black magic like the any percent route does. You went double fighter, double thief.
Yeah, so originally when I was practicing this, I was actually going to do the all bosses strategy, which runs one warrior, two thieves, and a white mage, because I thought I would still need the healing magic. And actually, in practice, when I was going through this, I realized that's like, as far as the physical damage is concerned, we're not taking anything too substantial, and most of the magical damage that we would be taking with the levels that we would be doing at would more or less one-shot us anyway. And credit to Nikki Noel, who was actually in my stream at the time. At the time when I was practicing this, she brought up the thought of, do we actually even need the heal? So that led me to segue to, okay, well, I still need somebody to do another Mithril Hammer just to have easy glitching, so why don't I do just a second warrior instead and just maximize my physical damage output that way.
And I said in retrospect after this, I think double thief was a good call. I would have done double thief in the rear. Now, I would have had to have done a little bit of party movement for the equipment glitch, or just gone without that extra set of equipment on somebody. But I think that may have been a little bit more optimized party for this run.
It certainly made the equipment glitching a little bit easier because I did have a second party member that can wield the Mithril Hammer. That's one of the conveniences of the warriors, that they're pretty much the universal weapon and armor user in the run. So almost anything we need to glitch, we can do so from the warrior onto our target party
Of course, we
member.
had to pick
So
up the loot. It's not required in our route because we're only doing this to the end of the Earthgift Shrine, but you're going to get the cutscene if you don't collect the loot, so talking to
yeah,
her is still mandatory.
yeah, it would waste an additional 5 or so seconds to attempt to leave and have her call us back for the walking animation.
So another little route divergence between us is because you have no casters, you have no need for ethers. You went ahead and you did your supply purchases already. That's still ahead for me.
Yeah, that was another thing where it's just where when I was practicing it, even when I was doing a dry run of this uh, party composition with the two warriors and the two thieves, I just off of muscle memory still did my shopping in Provoca, and while I was doing the shopping, I was just like, wait, why am I buying ethers? I'm not gonna cast magic whatsoever outside of item uses, so I don't need MP. So I was able to use old barbarian sword route strats actually that did their shopping in Cornelia instead. I think white magic? No, white mage route was still buying Provoca. Never mind. Yeah, that was old barbarian sword strats.
Yeah. I had some other shopping. I'm going to see if you did the same thing in Provoca or not. I'm curious about that, but I have to sit through a few of these cutscenes along the way as well.
The fortunate part being that at least in PSP we do have the option to skip them, unlike every other version where we still have to sit through them. That bridge cutscene that we skipped is a 90-second unskippable in every other version of these games here. So from whenever they ported it from the, I believe it's the Master System originally, and then through all the way through PS1.
I also want to give a shout out here to Porsyth, who ran this round with us, but it's just a lot harder to put 3 people on a screen than it is 2.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out to Porsyth, you know, very knowledgeable, long-time runner of this category. Extremely helpful when you're trying to learn the route. Just his knowledge is actually great to see, and he's super consistent at this run. And I believe he's sat through at least 2 route revisions at this point. I'm not quite sure if he ran Barbarian Sword route, but he was at least knowledgeable of it.
Okay, we're about to see a little bit of divergence as you go straight into the pirates. I take the, what I call the Swanee Wrath approach. He likes to do this shopping first so that NPCs don't end up getting in his way, and it's not particularly different on the timing output, it's just a little bit safer. So, I'm getting my shopping done here as you've already got the pirates down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also you had your shopping done already.
Mm-hmm. So, a little bit of time save there, and then the shopping early before Provoca 2 is helpful because the NPCs will spawn after you defeat the pirates, and it's just a way to prevent the minuscule chance that an NPC will block you here.
Now this was a little sneaky on my part if you didn't notice it. I bought a leather shield and turned it into a mage staff.
Oh yeah, I did catch that you were going to the armor shop there. And meanwhile, on my side of the gameplay, I'm attempting to do the 15 puzzle for a 1 in 6 chance item for an emergency exit. I did 2 attempts overall, and I got it on the second one. But this will allow you to, I don't know if you did 15 puzzle, but this will basically buy you back some time because I'm sitting here waiting for second place prizes.
Yeah, I'm not consistent enough. I'm not even consistent enough at getting it under a minute, so it's something I'll practice on just my own run, but in a race setting I wasn't going to attempt it. Because if you're going over a minute, then it's just completely a time sink. But also with the Mage Staff, I'm able to use that to kill the pirates a little bit faster than the Judgment Staff does.
Right.
Great advantage
spell animations. Yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the great advantage to that Mage Staff is those spell animations. It's faster to kill things, so there's a bunch of enemies, more so with the Earthgift Shrine is where that's really going to pay off. Once we get there, well, since I know you didn't have one, and you didn't have a black mage, there's going to be an obvious difference when we're working through that.
Yeah. The advantages of those spell animations cannot be understated. If you were to only use the Judgment Staff, which we got very early on, which cast the spell Flare, which is what I ended up using to kill the pirates, you would actually, over the course of a normal any percent run, probably lose anywhere between a minute to 2 minutes just through sitting through that spell animation, just because it's gonna take you about 2 to 3 extra seconds on average to sit through that, whereas if we cast a shorter animation like Fyra that still gets the job done on the kill, then that's just free time saves every single time we have to use that, and we run into significantly more random encounters than we fight bosses in this game.
That we do, and well, get to get too far ahead of ourselves. That'll be coming up more once we're actually in Earthgift. You're about to enter the Marsh Cave, and there's some threatening enemies in this range, but when you're using 4 party members, your run chances are pretty good, so it ends up not being as threatening. I've done a bunch of these soloed character runs, and anytime I'm up against Stun Touch, I hate my life, question everything about why I did this.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. With how overgeared we are due to the equipment glitch, death from damage isn't actually much a concern. What actually becomes our biggest concern is status ailments, so things like poison taking down every single round, paralysis making it, or sleep making it so we can't take our turns, petrification, which essentially renders the character dead. Because we have our armors will protect us from damage. They won't do so much to protect us against those status ailments unless we were to get very specific pieces of armor, which we unfortunately, even with the equipment glitch, can't do until much later in the game.
And now another interesting thing is, with your choice to not bring a mage, you didn't have a target level you had to hit. So it didn't matter what level you were at the end of that mage fight, you were just able to go straight to Astos. Whereas
Yeah.
I'm still trying to hit level 8 to be able to buy level 3 spells.
Yeah, that is one of the concerns that is in the early game for this route, is that we want to make sure that our mage, whether we're running white mage or black mage, we want to make sure that we... Actually, I'm sorry, let me correct myself on that one there. White mage wouldn't actually have this issue either, because we would use items to cast the spell, but if we're running a black mage and we're intending the black mage to be our primary spellcaster, then we want to make sure that we're at least level 8 by the time we've beaten Astos, because the level 3 spells are gated behind level 8. Unlike in the NES version where you could just buy the spell and just wouldn't have access to it until you had the spell charges for it. In remakes, you do actually have to be able to cast the spell before they allow you to buy it.
I only got 2 of the up to 4 possible wizards there, which was a little unfortunate because it's not enough experience. So what I did to solve the issue was go back in and take the fight again.
Yeah, that's certainly a consistent way to do it, because then you guarantee that you'll get another encounter for EXP. With 2 Pisca Demons, I think it's just like you're just shy. You need to take like 1 more solid encounter's worth of EXP. It's actually, I think, somewhere like around like 50 or so EXP, because like 1 ogre or a shark will do it. We're usually enough on average there, but you never know. You might just have, the amazing RNG up to Astos and not run into anything. So
if I get a double ogre encounter on the way in, I'll always take it, kill that 1 double ogre encounter, and know that my experience is going to be fine from then on.
That's certainly a consideration to take into account, especially when you're going through the early game. If there's, on like when going for like super low times in this game, most runners will try and just bank on either the random encounters they get along the way, or they'll actually just bank on the number of Pisca Demons they get, and if they don't get it, they'll just reset, because they don't want to take the extra encounter, because it's faster to run from it.
So you took both a death and slow from Astos, but when you've got this many people to hit him, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. I was actually kind of concerned that wouldn't be a 2-round fight with the slow there, because the nice thing about having 2 mages is that we consistently can get like at least 200 damage between the 2 flare casts from the Judgment Staff, and then the Warrior and the Thief would finish them off. I had some low rolls, I believe, in the first round, so I was kind of concerned if I was gonna be able to 2-round him, or if I was gonna go into a 3rd round. I actually can't recall if I did take a 3rd rounder or not, though, but it would have been somewhere between 2.5 rounds or so, I think.
Little pause there as I was considering killing the double ogres just because the experience, but I'd already taken the second mage fight, so there was no reason to.
Yeah. I can't recall if this was. I think this was the run I just had wolves everywhere on the way back from Astos.
They're a troublesome enemy to try and run from. In fact, when I'm doing my solo character runs, it's just nowhere near consistent enough, and I have to kill them until I've got the thief.
Yeah. The run chances in this game do calculate your party stats, so and we don't quite have our agility boosting items yet. So the knight's armor is for fluff purposes is very heavy, so it actually reduces our evade even further, which partially goes into it. So we're not taking a whole lot of damage, but we're not dodging a whole lot of attacks, and it somewhat affects our ability to run. And wolves just early on are also just very, very agile enemies, so the run chances aren't... It's there, but it's not favorable.
Another little thing I did differently, since I was in that armor shop, I picked up leather shields, not only to glitch them into a mage staff, but I actually do equip their shields, so my knights do have that on for a little bit extra evasion chance.
Yeah. That's... Oh, I actually didn't catch that up. Didn't catch you putting those on at all. It's like I figured the leather shield was specifically just for equipment glitching purposes.
It's something where I don't think it'd ever be worth it just to go out of the way to do that, but if you're getting the mage staff anyways, it's trivial to buy 2 extra leather shields. It's also something I've routed into the solo character runs now, just to improve survivability in the early game where it can be a challenge. Because if you block a stun touch, that's a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. A little minor thing I did as well when I went back to Elfheim, even though I didn't need to buy spells, but I went to the item shop really quickly to go grab gold. Needles just for safety, race setting. I wanted to make sure that I don't completely risk it on Earth Cave, and if I run into cockatrices, then a stone touch just doesn't instantly end my run.
That will force you back to a reset from save point. Now I'm going to make one extra purchase here, coming in and purchasing a dagger. I'm only going to use this once, but it's it's going to glitch into the dragon mail, which is a discount ribbon, for lack of a better term. Aside from the fact the absorb in armor value is just so much better than anything else we're going to have on the early game, which helps the squishiness of the black mage a lot. It's going to protect him from elemental damage, which against some of our scariest fights that we're going to face in this run adds a lot of safety.
Yeah, this early on, having a dragon mail would basically be the best physical armor you could get. That's solely just for that defensive purpose. Like other armors that we glitch will have like better effects at air quotes, because they're items that we would glitch from the post game. But dragon mail from vanilla is really up there in terms of potential candidates for best armor in the game. It provides slightly more absorb than our knight's armor, but it doesn't have nearly as high of the evade penalty to it. I think it's only like -10 compared to minus, like, I don't know, 40 or something like that on the regular knight's armor. And like you previously mentioned, it provides those elemental resistances to thunder, fire, and ice, which outside of our ribbon we wouldn't have access to on one piece of armor anyway.
There is encounter RNG as well. Obviously, we're not getting the same encounters throughout the whole thing. And it's just one of the things you accept when running this game is random encounters are going to be random.
Yeah. Unlike NES, we unfortunately do not have a step route that we can follow to guarantee and control which encounters we get on what step. Everything would be frame-based if it follows GBA logic, so we would have to basically play with task precision in order to dodge encounters or take encounters that we do want for EXP.
Your encounter there with the big eyes is a good example of why I was casting Thunder instead, because they do stun. That is quite the annoyance, especially if you fail to run the first turn. They could theoretically stun lock your party, and that has happened.
Yeah. My philosophy when I play, which probably isn't the most optimal in full runs, is that I will usually give it one attempt to flee from it unless I determine that it's a super dangerous encounter where I have a high risk of being like status locked, either like stun locked or petrify locked, and so I'll take the chances on the one run just in case, and then if I don't get it on the first run, I'll just take the guarantee and clear it out with like a judgment staff or something like that.
So the magic key starts unlocking a few options for us. You're gonna raid the elf treasury. Now normally we'd pick up 2 treasures here, the any percent run, but you're only getting that mithril hammer to turn into the thief armlets.
Right.
So why don't you talk a second about what the benefits of that are?
Right, so the Thieves Armlets, these armlets are actually a set of armor that were added that are added as a reward in the post-game Soul of Chaos dungeons. These are the 4 bonus dungeons that unlock after you beat each of the 4 fiends in the game, and the Earthgift Shrine being one of the ones that we're running to. The Thieves Armlets being post-game equipment are strictly better in terms of armor for everything that we've been equipping up to this point, but they also have a passive benefit of just having them on. They will give us +5 to our agility stat. Now with the equipment glitch, we can also put, not only do we create something from nothing, we can also put armors on slots we're not intended to have them. So this is how we're putting body armor on our hands and head slot, for example. And when we have 3 of these, the passive effects actually stack. It's not just a flag that says if you have this equipped, gain this stat. So we're rocking +15 agility, and for this early game, that's actually a lot of agility. It actually allows us to, with near certainty, run from every single random encounter. So after this point, basically anything you see us fighting, we basically is an unrunnable, or we're fighting just for safety to make sure that we don't get stun locked or anything like that. And then speaking of route deviations, you grab that crystal glove there.
Yeah, that becomes the sage staff because I am using a mage, so I want the spell damage to be enough to actually kill things.
Yeah, that sage's staff will give you, I believe it's 25 intelligence for just wielding it, and spell damage is the way the calculation works is that it's every 10 intelligence, I believe, you gain an additional multiplier to your damage calculation. So going from 10 intelligence to 20 intelligence, if you're doing 60 damage with Thunder, your cap will go up to 120.
And also, because I've got the mage instead of the all melee characters like you do, I got a base from the character that's higher than anything you're working with. So if one of your thieves, for example, were using the mage staff, you'd be seeing a lot lower damage output from it.
Yeah. Which is part of the reason why it's not quite as worth it for my all physical party comp to glitch in that sage's staff to try and boost my intelligence, just because I'm already doing so little damage to begin with. Like, the most damage I ever do at the beginning will be around like the 110s with the judgment staff, and that's pretty much what I'll always be casting for the rest of the game. No amount of intelligence that I glitch on will really change that unless I start stacking intelligence armor onto my party. But if I'm stacking intelligence, then I'm not stacking agility, which means I'm not going first in the turn order, and I'm also having slightly more difficult chances running. Because intelligence does also play into the run calculation chance. It actually it's part of the reason why mages are good at running away. Actually, the black mage, I believe, will, in the early game with sufficient intelligence, actually will outpace the thief in terms of flee chances, and it's not until the later stages where we have more agility that a vanilla thief will actually outpace a black mage for run chances. And credit to Dragon Dark for just the amount of research he did in just looking into those raw stats and how they all affect the calculations and everything like that there. It's been a huge help in understanding some of the decisions for the nuanced decisions that we have to make for rerouting the later versions of the game. It was a big help when I was rerouting GBA.
And speaking of rerouting, because this is different than the any percent run, we both were routing this stuff from scratch, I did an example run where I just followed the 80% route. Very vanilla at that point. Just diverted when I had to. But even with that, there's not a lot of difference, except that party composition.
Yeah, and a lot of our decision makings were very much optimized around the fact that, okay, we're only going to this one dungeon, you know, we're not completing the whole game with this, so we don't need to take as many long-term investments. We can, you know, take more like riskier decisions that would give us a higher benefit in the short term, for example.
So, like, not bringing a white mage, that healing spell we use in any percent for the white mage is learned at level 19, and I don't think we got to 19 by the end. Or if so, only
No.
just.
I think I was lucky to be 15, like, actually, no, not even 15. I think I was... Well, actually, no, maybe, yeah, but like we'll be beating our first boss Lich at around like the level 10s or so. And by the end of it, yeah, we're only gonna be like maybe in the mid to high teens at best. So by the time we would actually be learning the heal aura spell, we would be already be done with this run.
And one of the reasons I chose to grab the mage staff instead of learning fire, which I would be able to do 8, is now I don't have to restore MP just for the sake of fires. I would burn through a fair amount of those, but this is just going to let me use out of the item menu for the entire rest of the run.
Yeah, that's an interesting decision point that I saw that now that you've mentioned it up, because I saw that you did only buy the Thundara, and actually for the portions of the game that we'll be going through, we'll run into things that are significantly weak to fire. Well, excuse me, we'll run into things that are weak to fire significantly more than we'll run into things that are weak to thunder, and so not having to stop to restore your MP with ethers will give you you know, small bits of time saves here and there, because then because anytime you're in battle, all you have to do is just open up your item menu and cast the Mage's Staff, and with Memory Cursor, as long as you don't reset, the longest investment for that one is just going to be the first one where you have to go find it. Because every single time you open your item menu after that, your Black Mage's item set will always just be on that Mage's Staff.
And of course, we were both making use of the Barbarian Sword, which is the best sword we have access to. Not only damage, but it adds agility as well, so our survivability gets a little better here.
Yeah, it's bar none the best physical weapon in the game. It's a base 125 physical attack on top of a plus 15 strength bonus. So even with our low level party compositions, we hit like a truck. You know, we're hitting for like between 500 and 800 damage at our current party strength, when things have like maybe, you know, 200, 300 HP if they're meant to be like a mid-boss or something like that.
So you encountered the ever so fun group Death here. You're on the 3rd floor, which I've nicknamed Floor Frustration, because that's a party that could easily stun lock you if things go the wrong way.
Yeah. Earth Cave B3 is definitely worst floor in the game.
Certainly a contender at the very least, but our equipment is better in the other places is really the big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, so that vampire was meant to be a boss with very high physical defense and about 260 HP or so, and he was supposed to regenerate like a quarter of his HP every single round, as long as like we get our turn in before him because of the Thieves Armlets, and we just run that Barbarian Sword through him like a hot knife through butter.
So there's your emergency exit at 28:45. That'll give us a rough approximation of the difference of time save when I have to walk it out.
Yeah, the the emergency exit is a useful item to have specifically for the Earth Cave here, because if you didn't have it, because Final Fantasy 1 was a NES era RPG, how they stretched out your gameplay content was they had you do a lot of back and forth through a lot of quests. We've kind of seen it up to this point. The good example being like our Mystique back and forth. After we got the Crystal Light from Astos, we went up to Matoya and then back down to the Alpine. So we unfortunately can't progress further down into the Earth Cave until we make a detour to go grab the Earth Rod from Sarda the Sage here, which involves leaving the Earth Cave and coming back to it. And since we have to backtrack out the emergency exit saves us time from not having to backtrack the first 3 floors again.
Well, you're almost to Sarda to get that Earth Rod. I'm still working this floor of frustration. The wraiths aren't quite as bad as the ghasts are because they only hit once instead of 3 times. So, for example, on your side there, when you've got 8 enemies hitting 3 times, it's 24 hits versus 6 hits. So
and
you're basically facing
each
4
hit,
times as much danger.
Yeah, and as we can see here, that critically comes into play where now my party is paralysis locked, and now I'm just at the mercy of RNG, where I'm waiting for the right combination of the enemies don't hit somebody to reapply the stun touch and the paralysis to wear off on a certain party member. But you know, every single time they hit it, if they're hitting 3 times, that's 3 chances they have to reapply the stun, and then you know it's a random some random % chance that a party member comes up off of the paralysis touch. So
Base chance would be 25%. It'd be guaranteed if you were 100. It's following the same rules, but our HP is nowhere near that at this point. It leads me to following a rule of 2, sort of unofficially. If I've got 2 people stun locked, I'm gonna have the other 1 or 2 use an item to kill everything and just not chance it.
Yeah, I follow a very similar rule where if I've got half my party down, I just like, okay, yeah, we're not gonna risk this. I'm just gonna play this super safe. Like if I have 1 person down, I'll maybe do a combination of, you know, I'll flee with some characters, but I'll queue up a spell that will clear the path just in case. If I have more than that down, it's just like, nope, I'm just going to kill this now, because I'd rather bank on my agility and the minuscule chance that the enemy is random a turn before my high agility character, which is significantly lower than trying to run from it and fail.
So about a
Yes,
31-30,
failing to run is actually
I
a
finished
higher
the vampire, and there's the walkout versus the emergency exit. Not the best bat RNG either.
Yeah.
They did get a little friendlier with that in most places in this version, because they made the hallways a little wider.
They did, but they also kept all the important corridors 1 tile wide.
Gotta have those choke points.
Yep. Yeah, and actually the backtrack out is significant. Even in the NES version, it affects the step route that you take for the game, and you have to factor it in because unlike the remakes, we don't have these quality of life items where we can just instantly skip out on a certain section of the backtrack.
Here comes the return trip, and I'm still working my way out of this Earth Cave.
And this is even with me losing, you know, like a minute or 2 to just sitting there doing nothing, hoping I come out of the paralysis. And for context as well, it's like I was like when I was sitting there stunned, I was, you know, contemplating. It's like, okay, where was my last save? And I remembered that was like, oh, that was like right when I started Earth B3. And in my mind, because we're in a race setting, it's just like, well, if I reset to that, I'm pretty much near guaranteed to be behind everybody, and would have to have some incredible RNG even with having the emergency exit to catch back up. So I think the safer play is for me to sit here and just pray I come out of stun lock before those ghoul gas kill me, because while I'm sitting there stunned, I'm basically dying to 1,000 paper cuts, because those things are doing, you know, 3 damage to me every single time they hit me, and I'm just watching my HP whittle down and down and down. I actually think one of my warriors did get into critical HP before I got out of there.
So there you had right about a 2-minute walkout of cave on my part. That's gonna be pretty average. The encounters could have been worse, but that's pretty average result.
Yeah. And that right there is the reason why some runners choose to go for that 1 in 6 emergency exit item drop from the 15 puzzle. It's just to get you that guarantee of that you only have to go in through it once and then you can just get out. And so it's just one less section of RNG you have to factor in for your early game. So I mean, you could still have rough RNG up to that point, and it could end up not mattering. But if you're on good RNG pace, and you get to that point, then you don't have to sweat. Oh god, I'm going to lose all this time saved to just bad cave RNG trying to leave.
Fourth floor, by the way, is what I like to call Floor 3's little brother. It's got most of the encounters, but the rates of them aren't quite as bad.
Mm-hmm. There's a few extra formations in there as well.
Fifth floor has some unpleasantness, but you just don't see a lot of it, and you usually only get 1 or 2 encounters on it.
Yeah. Kind of a hidden blessing, I believe they did make the encounter rates on the floors that has bosses on them have lower encounter rates comparatively to the floors below them. That might be coincidental, not actually in there, but that's just what it seems like to me.
They've fiddled with that in various versions, like in the NES version, that the Tiamat floor in Sky Castle is actually one of the highest encounter rates of the game, because they were trying to get you back, basically. There was a Nintendo Power contest related to it, so it was an intentional promotion and effort on that part.
Yeah, that's one of the changes from Famicom to NES that does make it significantly scary on that floor, because not only are you more likely to get an encounter, you're also 3 times as likely to find a Warmech, because I believe it's a 3 in 64 in NES, where it's only a 1 in 64 in Famicom. Because they had that Nintendo Power contest of take a photo with Warmech.
Yeah, they moved it from a Group 8 to a Group 7, if you ever want to look into that in more detail, but you have defeated Lich at the 36-minute mark, as I'm getting right back into this Earth Cave now. And you are on your way to the final dungeon.
Yeah. There was a consideration I had when I was routing this of, it's like, do I detour to Crescent Lake to go upgrade my equipment? Because one of the things we would do in vanilla at this point is we would go to Crescent Lake and we would get a Mithril Axe, which would get we could glitch into the Black Garb, which would not do too much in terms of improving our armor, but it would give us a +10 agility bonus per armor set rather than +5. So we'd essentially go from +15 agility to +30. And I considered that, but after rewatching your practice run, sample run that you did, as well as just like doing a quick search on like, okay, what's in the Earthgift Shrine, and like what does the boss's speeds look like Cerberus, Two-Headed Dragon, Aramon, and Enkidu, what do their stats look like? And I made the call. It's like, you know what? I think I'm safe to do it on these armlets, so I think we'll just skip that detour there.
Yeah, in testing I had found no issue using the armlets, so it wasn't a consideration for either. Biggest thing it would, I suppose, do for it, well, you'd also get the Lust Daggers, so the agility increase would be significant. But as far as a melee weapon, you'd rather use the Barbarian Sword anyways.
Yeah. So, and if any Lust Daggers equipped, I would have to re-glitch Barbarian Swords onto my Thief before I do any boss fighting. So it'd be double time sync, because I would have to glitch them on and then glitch them off essentially.
Now this is a wild time to mention that this was intentionally a sprint strat, and let's talk about this floor first. This floor is RNG on where it drops you. Now it is consistent in its layout. The layout is always the same, but you have to figure out from these trees, from treasure chests that are out there, where you are on the map. And the biggest piece of advice I can give anyone on that front, the floor is not that long. It's not that big. So if you're walking too far and only seeing desert, reset, go back to the save from where you landed on the floor, and go the other way, because you went the wrong way.
Yeah.
If it's a long walk, you're wrapping around the world.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I was doing a little bit of zigzagging, just because I know I had a map up of the layout, or I had all the trees on that one there. And this is actually where I made a mistake here, because I didn't check that solo tree that I found after the two downloads, because there was two sets of down pointing trees on the map, and I saw the one tree and I was just like, oh, okay, well, I think I know where I am, because the oasis should be straight up from here. I was actually at another point, so if it weren't for the fact that I was up and zigzag, and I found that set of trees later that I found to reorient my bearings, I probably would have wandered around significantly more on this map.
Another difference in this Lich fight versus what we're used to on the 80% route, a third melee hitter basically guarantees it's going to be a one-round fight.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a one-round fight, vanilla, but having three or just totally guarantees it.
Yeah, the concern in normal 80%, where we would only have two physical damage dealers with barbarian swords, is that we can potentially low roll by just a few points, anywhere to like double digits to at most like maybe 100 under, depending on various factors such as, did a warrior or thief miss out on EXP? Did we miss a crit? Did we just low roll our damage overall? Kind of thing. With 3 or 4 barbarian swords, those concerns are out the window, because as long as the swords swing, we'll get the damage range there. At that point, the only other concern we have is just on the minuscule chance that Lich manages to sneak a turn in before we get the final blow in.
Quick points. One, see, I've done a lot of safety saving about. That's an underdog strat. That's okay. There are chances that things can go wrong from these players who are better than I am, and there's chances things can go wrong for me. If I've got more saves than they do, I have a better ability to recover from something going wrong. So that's not required, it's just a solid underdog play.
And you're not wrong in that sense, because I didn't save before going into Earthgift, and so that moment I had on the desert floor where I was just like, oh god, I went the wrong way. How do I fix this? Because I'm panicking at this point, because it's like I could wander this desert for ages, and I was like, I don't know where to go, and I don't have a safety save to revert back to try again. It's like I figured out, it's like, okay, I went completely the wrong direction, and now I need to find another set of trees to figure out where I am.
The other thing that's noteworthy is, of course, we've been running away here, there, and everywhere, except those Pisca demons, which were the only unrunnable encounter that we've been seeing as RNG. And we can run away from all of these enemies here in Earthgift. The thing is, whenever you see that NPC standing there that we're talking to, every one of these is a fight. You can still run away from these fights, by the way, but the NPC will still be standing there, so you're going to have to fight it again. And it's just a random encounter for what you can get. If you ran away from the death beads, you might get the imp the next time. That part's RNG, but you're gonna have to clear the fight.
Yeah. So the guaranteed run chance from the preemptives here are actually a bait, because it's just like you see, I had that I have the problem too. Is like I see a preemptive strike and my muscle memory just instinctively wants to go, okay, I can run from this, and then I run into an encounter. It's like, no, wait, I have to fight this. You had a very good desert spawn.
It was good because it was a recognizable feature, so I knew which way to go quickly. And also, as far as the past year goes, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say I may very well have run this dungeon more than anyone else. Because I did it as an incentive run during a recent marathon with just the solo red mage, but it's still the same navigation through the dungeon. So in practice for 2 different events, I've run this bonus dungeon a bunch.
Yeah. And if you caught it there, I had I had the thing happen where I got an encounter right before I talked to the mandatory NPC, and I was mashing X the entire time I was approaching it. So when I saw the encounter load instantly, I thought, okay, I just hit the talk to the guy as soon as I hit him, and then the battle ended, and I was just like, wait, why is the NPC still there?
So I've actually gotten onto the same floor as you, but I'm not as deep in the dungeon because I still have another floor after this one. But
Right.
right now, this is showing off the power of the mage staff strats, because every time I'm coming into these, everybody else is defending. Black mage uses the mage staff. I just have to hold A for everything.
Yeah, and that saves you frames on animations for fade out, because every single time, like, I have to individually kill something, I have to wait for that one enemy to disappear, versus if you clear out multiple enemies at the same time with the mage's staff, you get all of them away on that one time there.
And if you were wondering about those peds, there you go. They do clear out with the mage staff. It does enough damage, so because it will kill everything, and I knew that from testing, that's why I went with the strat. So here we are, this is the final floor, and you have your choice of 4 different bosses, because all that was required was to beat one of them.
Yeah, in testing, we what's it called? Some of us were gravitating towards Cerberus because he has the lowest HP out of the 4 options, and he's the closest one to there. But the thing about Cerberus is that Cerberus can cast Thunderbolt, and with our current HP, there's no way we survive that unless we have Elemental Protection. Did some additional research, found out that Two-Headed Dragon, which I'm fighting now, for only 500 extra HP, does only physical attacks, and 500 extra HP when we have Barbarian Swords is nothing.
And let me tell you, with Elemental Protection, that Thunderbolt is still a hard hit. Because obviously I've got it on the Black Mage. I put the Dragon Mail on instead, and I could have put that Dragon Mail on everybody, which is something I did in fact experiment with, but I still didn't like the survivability. So that's your GG. The Double Dragon is defeated in 46 minutes. A well-earned victory. We gave a shout out to poor Scythe earlier. He came in here, he did try to get Cerebrus, but he lost to RNG unfortunately, and did not complete it.
And it's also noteworthy too that poor Scythe made the detour. He told us he made the detour to Crescent Lake to get black carbs, and he still was on pace to finish at about 49 minutes or so. The final times would have actually been very, very close. So shout outs to him for just his skill, and especially too from he was basically improvising, because he didn't do a chance to do a lot of like practice routing ahead of time. So he was relying basically on his knowledge and experience from running the game, as well as his few times he ran all bosses for backup there.
Incidentally, as far as navigating this floor, it's easier to understand when you have a map up, and isn't that true of a lot of things? But you're generally speaking just running a big circle. You're going around the outside of them. So it's really easy to navigate once you've seen it and practiced it once.
Yeah. It's noteworthy is too as well. The bonus dungeons, the pool of floors, it will never change no matter what. What makes them kind of difficult to pick up, and a little bit more of a deterrent for, especially if you're thinking about running like the all bosses category and speed running, is that the floors orders are random. So, like Earthgift Shrine is not nearly as bad because it's only a 5-floor dungeon, and there's only 4 floors you have to memorize, and it's just a matter of memorizing which order you get, what to do depending on what order you get them in. We go even one bonus dungeon further down the list, and we go to Hellfire Chasm. Suddenly we have 10 floors, with 2 boss floors in them. So that's 8 random floors that we have to memorize and figure out how to navigate in a random order. So even if we were only going to through the first 5 floors, we still have to memorize how to do 8 floors for only having to do 4 of them, and it just gets progressively worse from there.
So that first room there was the Cerebrus room. I took a misstep there. Here we go with the dragon.
Yeah.
Of course, it's going to take me a little bit longer in this fight because I don't have that extra sword. I still like the idea of the mage clearing things out. I didn't figure it was worth it to go back for haste. And I still think I stand behind that, because you probably have to do a little extra fighting just to get enough levels for it.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment, just because even in a regular any percent run, even if you had bad encounter RNG and you're taking extra unrunnables like Pesky Demons and or like having to clear undead for safety, you will only at most be about level 10 or so after leaving Lich, and you wouldn't be able to learn haste until I believe it's level 12 for the Black Mage. So we would have to go out of our way to fight additional encounters to get additional EXP there. And the time sink to get that EXP would not
That's
make the
round
haste
one. I'm
worth
not
it
sure if we're
for
doing
saving
round two.
what would amount to maybe half a turn on the actual boss fight itself with how much damage we're doing.
I had to mute myself there from the VOD purposes, but both of us finished under 50 minutes. This is a nice, quick goal. Looking for a different way, a different objective that maybe doesn't take quite the same time investment as defeating Chaos. We had some fun doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to be a wrap on gift percent. Any final thoughts?
I definitely recommend that if you want to try this out, have some notes, do some research, because the 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 most intimidating part is just it is just when you see it for the first time. It's scarier than it looks. Once you like, if you have a map up and you follow along with some notes, it's actually not nearly as scary as it is, and especially with the equipment glitch, like you don't really have to worry about dying. It's just the matter of just making sure you don't get lost, and that's really like the worst of it. But once you actually get into it, it's really not that bad. So I definitely recommend like people. It's like if you wanting to uh pick this game up and it's something different, as Trenton mentioned. Yeah, run to Earthgift. It'd be a nice thing there, and give yourself a little bit of a challenge there. See which boss you can defeat with what equipment. Get creative with your item routing.
Yeah, and we spent about a month on this, and I don't think either one of us considers this optimized at this point.
No, not at all. No.
So there's a lot of room for fun with this. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks, everybody, and have a good one.
Have a good one.